Welcome! This is the Atram webinar series. We are about to start in a few minutes.
Do you want to make your money work for you but find investment intimidating? Do you want to build towards a better future? With Atram Group's funds, you can invest according to your interests and values. Investing is now made easier and affordable. Step into your future self, invest to reach your goals and aspirations. Matching your risk appetite and investment horizon has never been this easy. Let us help you maximize your earning potential by writing the growth story of the Philippine economy and opening your doors to the international trends in the global markets. Let us prepare you for a better financial future. At Atram, we're making lives better through investing.
Welcome! This is the Atram webinar series. We are about to start in a few minutes.
The Atram Alpha Opportunity Fund Incorporated has one mission: to look for the winners of tomorrow. The fund actively finds the fastest-growing Philippine companies with high-quality management and sound business strategies. This growth has often translated to higher stock prices. The fund has a proven track record of selecting companies outside the Philippine Stock Exchange Index that were eventually included in major indices, while most funds in the market stay within the Philippines' top 30 companies. This has led the fund to consistently outperform the market in the long term. Furthermore, the fund invests in long-term drivers of growth that could provide significant gains for investors, such as technological advancement, tourism, infrastructure, and sustainability. Invest in the potential of the best growth stories the Philippines has to offer. Invest in the Atram Alpha Opportunity Fund Incorporated. For more information, visit www.atram.com.ph.
Welcome! This is the Atram webinar series. We are about to start in a few minutes.
What is a bond fund? Why invest in a bond fund instead of directly investing in bonds of actual companies? Corporate bonds are borrowings of companies to help finance their operations. In general, bonds are interest-bearing investments. You earn interest when you buy this particular investment. Think of a single corporate bond like a plant. It grows over time and blooms. Meanwhile, a corporate bond fund is more like a garden. A garden is more satisfying than a single plant. It contains different types of plants and flowers that are carefully picked and monitored by gardeners. They are studied every day to ensure that they will grow and bear fruit. The Atram Corporate Bond Fund is designed similarly. Recommended to investors with a moderate risk appetite, the fund provides you returns like that of a corporate bond but invested into multiple corporate bonds, providing you more safety in case one of the multiple companies are unable to pay. Diversification is ensured to make the fund more efficient and stronger than owning a single bond. The fund pays regular annual dividends, providing you with a small stream of income. Unlike a corporate bond, the fund provides you liquidity without sacrificing the price. And lastly, the fund is actively managed and constantly studied to minimize the risk of the fund losing money. Invest in corporate stability. Invest in the Atram Corporate Bond Fund. For more information, visit www.atram.com.ph.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the much-anticipated Atram Market Outlook webinar for the second quarter of 2024. Whether you are a seasoned investor, just starting out, or simply someone interested in gaining valuable insights into the market, you're very much in the right place. My name is Ross Santos. I'm from the Atram Products and Partnerships team, and it's an absolute pleasure to have each and every one of you with us today. In today's second quarter market outlook, we'll share Atram's perspective on the current market state and the strategic alignment of different investment approaches. Our aim is to craft tailored investment solutions that align with the individual goals and needs of each client, all while helping them grasp the implications for their investment portfolios. So feel free to ask your questions if you have by clicking the Q&A button located right below your screen, and even get a chance to win limited Atram merch. To stay informed about our future events and receive important updates, kindly take a moment to visit our official social media pages just by scanning the QR code displayed on your screen. Also, a replay of today's session will be available on Atram's YouTube channel, Atram Studio, so please subscribe and share with your friends. You may also access our social media pages by scanning the QR code provided. You can also check our website at www.atram.com.ph for a more comprehensive information on the market, finance, investments, and all the funds that we provide. We will be wrapping up today after our webinar with a quick feedback survey. So please, we do hope that you share your thoughts with us about our session today so we can also further improve our webinar series. Sounds good? Now, this afternoon, we are very much privileged to be joined by an expert with over 14 years of experience in investment management. Also a scientist by training, earning a master's degree in physics at the University of the Philippines in 2007. Her interest in complex systems led her to seek a career in finance, and prior to the onslaught of the 2008 global financial crisis, she already got her foot in the industry as an analyst and market risk manager for the trust department of one of the top local universal banks in the country. Today, she serves as Atram's Chief Investment Officer and the chairperson of the firm's investment committee. She is very much responsible for overseeing all investment portfolio-related activities of the firm, including formulation and implementation of strategic tactical asset allocation decisions, fund and security selection calls, and market risk management for Atram's discretionary managed accounts across equity, fixed income, and multi-asset strategies. She is also a CFA charter holder, a member of the Board of Trustees for CFA Society Philippines in 2017 to 2019, and a member of the Fund Managers Association of the Philippines. I'm very pleased to welcome Ms. Sandra Araulo. Hi, Sandra. Good afternoon. Kamusta? How are you today?
Hi, Ross. Good afternoon to everyone who's tuned in for this afternoon.
All right, let's get started, Sandra. Very much excited to hear your insights and outlook for the next quarter.
Yeah, sure. So for this afternoon, I tried my best to put together in a succinct presentation our thinking, no, for an update, a quarterly update to our thinking. So for those who have been able to watch the first quarter outlook, the flow will be very familiar. For those who are new, I will reference some of the views that were shared previously so that there is some continuity. So let's start off with a survey of what's happened so far year to date. No? So for those of you who've been joining us for some time, this should be very familiar to you. We cut up the investment universe, or at least the markets, from our perspective into 4 markets. No, so we have our local markets, Philippine fixed income and Philippine equities. So that's the gray and yellow lines respectively. And then the rest of the world, no, global equities, global fixed income in blue and orange respectively. So the entire first quarter had been a continuation of the cyclical rally that had started in the fourth quarter of last year. And if you recall, the narrative around that is a complete 180 from recession fears to just continued strong growth in the US, and a messaging that central banks are at the end of their tightening cycles. However, after the end of the first quarter, we saw a very sharp drawdown for all markets, actually, led by Philippine equities. So we, as of middle of April, we practically erased the year-to-date gains, practically flat for the market. Global equities is more moderate drawdown, but still almost a 50% retracement. And then for fixed income markets, Philippine fixed income, global fixed income, it's been total returns for these markets have been in the negative, actually, no? So what's going on? Actually, in the next page or in the next slide, it's really being driven by a repricing or an adjustment of how market participants are pricing in rate cut expectations, no? So there was a very optimistic and very bullish pricing in of Fed cuts, the Federal Reserve having embarked on a aggressive tightening cycle. You know, they've been raising policy rates. So we've gotten to, so since June of last year, they've stopped that hiking path, and now it's a question of when are they gonna start cutting? Kasi inflation is already, there's been disinflation, and it's a cycle, no? It's an economic cycle, and there is a lot of anticipation for when the easing begins because there are implications to many different markets. However, I mean, it's path dependent. You're gonna hear that a lot, no? The path that the policymakers take towards the management of the economy will have implications down the line, and that's what markets are really trying to get a handle on. So the beginning of the year, it's very aggressive. The markets were pricing in. So you'll see here on the right-hand chart, no? On January 1, the markets were expecting as much as 7 Fed rate cuts, no? Which will bring down the policy rate to from 5.1 to 3.9 at the end of the first. Sorry, this is starting May na to eh. So basically those 7 rate cuts were expected to bring policy rates to much lower levels, even lower than 3.9. 3 months ago would bring us to around, call it February. On February 1, it was still the same, but there was a delay, no? So the onset of these expected cuts have been pushed back. And so today, or at least middle of April, the orange line, from 6 cuts to now just 2 cuts, and not going to start until the second half of the year. So that also brings the terminal rate, or not the terminal rate, it brings the policy rates to 4.9 for the US. At least that's what markets are pricing in. And that adjustment in benchmark rates have had an effect of causing volatility in the markets. So on the next slide, I'm showing here just anchoring or at least getting a sense of what we think or what the market is thinking the policymakers are going to do. So what's the mandate? The mandate is to bring inflation under control. And you can see here on both the Philippines and the US, the orange lines represent inflation. For the Philippines, we're back early this year since the whole of last year practically. You're seeing some disinflation or coming down of inflation after that spike, no? And we're within the BSP's target. In the US, it's come down, but for the past few months, there has been a how do you say, it's kind of leveled off. It's still above the Federal Reserve's target, and that's the Fed's target, and that's why they're hard pressed to cut rates because inflation is still threatening to come back online, ano? The good news is that growth in the blue lines have been, particularly in the US, quite resilient despite the tighter monetary policy environment. For the Philippines, it's been how do you say, it's been acceptable. It's not as, hasn't been as impressive as how the US GDP growth has been coming in, but the US has been exceptional in this regard. So but basically, given where inflation, the path of inflation, it's coming down, but it's still not quite within those targets. And with growth not stalling, not falling off a cliff, it's allowing central banks to stay the course and not be in a rush to cut interest rates. So what we have on the next slide. On the next slide is, okay, maybe a further step back. In the US, there are three possible economic scenarios, and I'm tying this to where the market is today, where we have been the beginning of the year, and where we were even at the beginning of 2023. If you recall, it was all about recession risk. There was a lot of fear in the markets around recession, which is typically associated with negative performance. And then it became so from a recession or a hard landing scenario, it developed into a soft landing scenario, which is why for the fourth quarter of last year until the first quarter of this year, there has been very favorable conditions for both equities and stocks. But now, because of the data that's come in, we haven't seen GDP growth really come off. A no landing scenario is kind of coming back into the conversation. The problem with this no landing scenario is we actually don't want for the US to not have a landing. They still need to come off. Okay, if the further out it gets pushed, the likelihood of a hard landing increases. No, so these are the three scenarios in the US. In the first quarter of this year, it's been a soft landing narrative. It's like a Goldilocks narrative. Growth is there, inflation is so it's growth that is just right, no, not too bad and not too hot. And then inflation is coming off. The problem is there has been an uptick in inflation in the US, and it's clear that the Fed will need to see it come hot for them to deviate from their plans of cutting 3 times this year. Meaning they need to see they need to not see inflation to continue on their plans to cut 3 times this year. Kasi that's what's being communicated by the Fed themselves. So they're likely to cut 3 times this year. But it has been coming in. And it's because of a market that or an economy that or participants in the economy that's expecting a Fed that will be easing significantly, and so they're gearing up to participate in economic activity. So it's a bit of a chicken and egg situation. So any inflation that the Fed is still looking to keep under control is likely going to be caused this time around by actual economic activity. In the past kasi, inflation had been strong because of the savings being depleted, sort of still an offshoot of revenge spending. So a lot of US consumers were spending their savings. There's also a strong labor market. You must have been hearing this a lot, no? The Fed is not likely to cut rates soon because jobs data have been quite strong. But beneath the surface, the strong jobs data is coming from immigration, no? So you just have more supply. more supply of or more participation in the market by um by immigrants, and it was keeping the labor market hot, which was keeping the Fed from cutting rates. So anyway, that's the nuanced perspective there. Again, just going back to the three likely scenarios and where we're kind of been bouncing around. So we came from a no landing scenario or narrative in 2023 or beginning of 2023, became a soft landing narrative. So that's what markets were pricing in. So it's positive for stocks and positive for long maturity bonds. And now we're going back to a possibility of a no landing and therefore a hard landing where it's not good for stocks and not good for and actually, sorry. So the recession scenario is not good for stocks, good for bonds. The soft landing scenario is good for both. But maybe the hard landing recession scenario is where bonds are really going to outperform kasi Fed now needs to cut aggressively. So that's what's driving markets so far since last year and in the balance of the year. Next slide, please. Okay, so maybe I'll take all of that and bring it back home, which is should be a familiar slide for those of you who joined us during the first quarter macro outlook. So there's a bit of a change in color schemes here, no? So I'm just using red, yellow, and green. Basically, green is favorable, yellow is medyo in between, no reds, no. In the first quarter, the reds here had been the regional view where El Nino we thought was going to really be a threat to disinflation in the Philippines. Also on the normalization of consumer spending, we were concerned that the wallets or the share or the savings also have of Filipino consumers must be depleted already, and inflation will really bite into demand. However, we've actually seen some optimistic view or acceleration in the second half to next year, where employment growth does enhance purchasing power and savings once again. So that's becoming a little bit more constructive there. And lastly, on the investment demand, initially we were saying that it's going to be coming from public spending, but now we're seeing corporates transitioning to expansion demand. Not yet, but gearing towards that already, no? So again, it's positive generally for the macroeconomic picture. Next slide. Okay, so what does that mean? Or at least maybe to complete the macroeconomic picture, our adjustments to forecasts, no? As the data are coming in, we've had to make some adjustments to our GDP and inflation forecast. So for GDP, we've actually upgraded our 2024 forecast by about 30 basis points, and 2025 by 40 basis points and 30 basis points respectively. So it's because of an upgrade in consumption and investment spending, but a little bit and offset by some downgrade in government spending, because the government needs to really be fiscally disciplined there. So I'll talk about that a little later. The other change has been an upgrade, so we've reduced our expectations or our forecast for 2024 inflation by about 1.7 percentage points. and 2025 by 2.1 percentage points. So this is due to change in forecast rice prices, no, because of El Nino not expected to come in as severely as we had in the beginning of the year, and because there is enough inventory of rice, the pressure for rice prices to kick in has subsided. The other adjustment here is on our peso dollar expectations. Admittedly, we were very bullish on the peso at the beginning of the year. We've had to adjust our average peso dollar forecast to closer to consensus, no? So consensus is at 54 peso per dollar for the year. So we've adjusted it on the basis of our adjusted growth assumptions and some commodity price adjustments as well. And finally, on policy rates, again, it's really anybody's guess, no? Even the policymakers themselves have had to be very data dependent, and it's a question of, while the BSP is very much going to look or keep tabs on what the Fed is doing, and likely they prefer to move or to start cutting when the Fed starts their easing cycle. There will still be, if in case it gets pushed back too far as Fed cutting is concerned, we expect the BSP to go ahead and move with our own rate cuts by about 75 basis points this year. That's still our base case scenario. Although again, very data dependent, and as the data comes in, expect for adjustments to be made on these forecasts as well. Next slide, please. All right, so all of that sets the stage. What are the implications for markets? First, the outlook for global markets. We are coming from a more constructive view on global equities to a more balanced view. So from overweight to neutral on global equities, and on the flip side, from neutral to a little bit overweight global fixed income. Why? In the US, in global equities, sentiment has been quite stretched, very stretched actually. Can it continue? Yes, it can. In fact, earnings estimates for the US market, so the US exceptionalism has continued. And just based on earnings expectations, what's been driving the US market had been the Magnificent Seven. The likelihood of some of earnings having more breadth across US companies remains to be seen, but it's kind of catching up with the outperformance of the Magnificent Seven. And so, again, consensus estimates, what are markets expecting? And if US exceptionalism continues to build momentum behind it without anything really, with no catalyst, but that's the thing, parang it's gonna continue going up until there's something that causes it to pop. So we kind of want to be careful because expectations or sentiment in US markets or US equity markets have been quite stretched. On the flip side, with respect to fixed income markets, so you'll see here on the graph, current yields for the different segments of the fixed income space, where the 10-year median is relative to the range, So basically, those blue diamonds are still above the purple bars, and that tells us that it's cheap relative to history, relative to 10-year history. But it's still, there's reason that it can get cheaper. As I said, depending on the scenario that develops for the macroeconomic outcome in the US, markets will price all of that in. So it's really quite a delicate balancing act, and therefore, from an allocation standpoint, being more neutral neutral to strategic weights is where, at least on the discretionary portfolios, our direction had been. Next slide. Okay, bringing it now to Philippine markets, no? So for Philippine bonds, what's taken place? Same thing, sentiment and positioning have been challenged because of a shift in the timing of rate cut expectations by the BSP. So in a matter of 2 weeks, actually, we saw huge volatility in both Philippine bond and equity markets, but specifically for bonds, no, just when we thought that rates are actually at the high end of the range, and we felt that we've seen the highs, we're actually now back at 6.8 for the 10-year government bond. So you'll see here on the yield curve, the purple line is where we're at today, and it's coming from the light blue line. So that move up in yields from the end of the year is something that is driven by the delay. So there are many drivers, right? Bond supply, borrowings of the government, but generally, the reason why we've seen further uptick in yields is because of that price, or the need to reprice expectations on when the Fed cuts and when the BSP cuts are likely to take place. So for the second quarter, we're actually less bullish on bonds, but it's very tactical. We think that by the second half of the year, we're gonna go back to this narrative of policymakers signaling that they're ready to pull the trigger on the first cuts, and that will be your catalyst for another sort of cyclical rally that similar to what we saw in the fourth quarter of last year. Next slide. So on the Philippine equity space, so those higher yields have contributed to higher or expanding risk premiums on the PSEI. So if yields are high, of course, investors are going to expect higher earnings yield also for being invested in equities. And the gap between the two is the risk premium. It's been climbing up, or it's been weighing on the market, basically, no? So it's like, why would I buy equity when I can buy a bond at a much lower risk and just clip on coupons? From a risk reward standpoint, bonds are quite attractive because of the high nominal yields. So it's really that's kind of preventing the market from seeing inflows, specifically from foreign. So on the right-hand chart, you'll see the data on net foreign flows versus market performance. And because of the characteristics of our own market, it's still very shallow in terms of participation of local investors and breadth. We really need foreign to prop the market up, no? So that's what we saw in the early 2020s, like 2010 to 2015, no? We saw that things were really favorable. We saw the market rally from 3,000 to the all-time highs. But since then, we've been stuck. I mean, last 5 years, market hasn't really done anything, and you know the story there, right? But we're keeping an eye on foreign flows, and at the beginning of the year, again, because of this switch, or this flipping narrative, or at least this move from a higher policy environment to rate cutting, na it's been naudlot or it's been postponed. The small positive foreign inflows that we've seen year to date have pulled back, or it's very early days for for us to be able to ascertain whether foreign investors into the equity markets are really high conviction. So right now, it's a lot of testing the water for a lot of foreign investors in the market. Next slide. Okay, so again, no, just want to highlight here that we've been stuck in this range since the end of 2019 when we reached our highs. Then the pandemic happened, and you know the rest of the story. We've been stuck on this pattern where our resistance is quite strong. The beginning of the year, we thought now we're finally going to be able to break out from that pattern and create a new level of technical support and new highs, I guess, for the market. But again, it's a combination of things, no? What's happening globally, some of the geopolitical risk, even the timing of all of this happening. Kasi it was a holiday, markets were closed, and it was during the Holy Week, and so, you know, there was no liquidity, and the reaction and all of that kind of brought us back to this range that we're in. We were kind of expecting worst case we'd go back to around 6.2, but from the looks of things, mukhang we're seeing again some support around around 6.3, 6.4. So you know, hopefully the narrowing risk premium that we are expecting in the second half and that improving backdrop can pave the way for the PSEI to re-rate towards 7,400. So that's our more or less target for the index. That assumes right now we're at 10 times PE. That assumes about a 13 times price to earnings multiple. Certainly not demanding, and well anchored, we believe, no? So it's a matter of waiting for maybe corporate results to come in so that investors get a little bit more confidence, no, to deploy. But again, it's at least for us on the institutional or us money managers, we're pretty much invested, no, because value from a valuation standpoint or fundamental standpoint, it's very attractive, and that's the investment principle by which we operate. Next slide. Okay, so actually, this is a slide that I had shown in the first quarter outlook. So just to kind of remind or highlight that the risks are known. The risks for this year are known. There is still the geopolitical aspect, and we've seen that. It kind of leads into or lends itself to commodity prices maybe impacting supply side inflation, and also differences in different economies' abilities to manage the monetary and fiscal side of things. There are elections in different parts of the world, particularly the US. That's going to be a big thing for November. China is also still going through, you know, the challenges in its economy and its geopolitics. So, you know, the takeaway here is you have to have a well-calibrated portfolio to be able to weather these risks. And as long as you take a long-term perspective and there is an understanding of what the underlying drivers are, then an investment, there's no reason why an investment portfolio will not do well. That's it for me, Russ.
Oh, thank you so much, Sandra, for this thorough overview, no, and for generously dedicating your time to outline both the market landscape and, you know, the potential opportunities for our audience. One thing always parang pick up whenever we have this quarterly outlook is how is the number of different factors that come into play that would eventually affect the equity market and even the fixed income market. From a personal level, it seems like a big task to take on. It's really a big challenge. For instance, on how, say, the interest rates would potentially affect, the overall market, whether the bond yields would continue to stay at a high level, or if when it will start to dwindle down. Same with the on the equity market, whether on how it will affect the stock prices over the next few months. So very interesting. And I'm sure there would be a lot of questions from the audience members, given the number of things that come into play, about our market outlook and how will it affect, especially to those that are already investing, especially in our Atram investments and Atram funds. So I guess one key learning with the quick summary that I just did is, I guess it really pays Sandra to continue staying updated. I guess through our social media.
Well, I mean, that's why you have professional managers, right? I mean,
Right.
this is the value that we try to deliver, the service that we try to give our clients. It is a complex endeavor, but it also, I mean, these webinars are meant to bridge the gap between the professionals ourselves who are
Right.
really trying to look at all of the considerations, distill it into the important parts,
Mhm.
challenge the view or whatever we're seeing, challenge our own views, or the team, no? So we have this whole team behind all of these. This is not just my view.
Right.
But yeah, it's a very active endeavor,
Yeah.
and but also very fascinating
Yeah.
to really get into the weeds of.
That's right. And definitely it takes a big group of people with more than 100 years of collective experience, just so we can create the right, hopefully the closest projections that we can make, the closest cost that we can make, especially in we live in a reality where so many, I think some, we call it black swans, where suddenly many different things would come up.
So,
um
the origin of that, no?
mhm,
Before, nobody's ever seen a black swan. So they
yeah,
thought there were no black swans. They thought swans were all white. And
mhm,
once they saw one, parang it's not a a black swan is not as unique
mhm,
as what it was originally thought to be. So
mhm,
same, it's a black swan before it's a black swan event, until it actually happens. And
mhm.
when it does, it's not so unusual anymore.
Mm-mm. That's right. So definitely, I think it really pays dividends to stay updated, no? So through our social media channels and through our webinars such as this. So definitely, our audience members will have a lot of questions, and we'll try to answer them as much as we can. But before anything else, let me share you with some outstanding recognitions that Atram has received in 2024. With the collective research and experience that everyone has in pushing the boundaries in making and your investment experience great, we have earned several prestigious awards this year, showcasing our commitment to both excellence and innovation. We have been awarded as the Best Asset Management Company Philippines 2024 and the Leading Asset Management Company Philippines 2024, highlighting our top-tier services and global standing. Additionally, we're proud to be recognized as the most innovative fund management firm, Philippines 2024, and the leading innovative asset management company, demonstrating our dedication to cutting-edge solutions. Furthermore, we have been named as the leading asset and wealth manager in the Philippines 2024 and Asset Manager of the Year Philippines, reaffirming our position as industry leaders. And just recently, Atram Group has won the Market Award Philippines, which was formerly known as Fund House of the Year Awards from Asian Investor. We very much owe this success to our dedicated team pushing the boundaries in the investment industry, and our heartfelt thanks go to our clients and partners for their very much unwavering support. Rest assured, we'll continue to push these boundaries and be committed to the excellence innovation that we have been trying to do for the many years already in the asset and fund management space. So thank you very much for being part of our success story today and hopefully in the many more years to come. Now, for our valued audience to share any burning questions that they may have, for sure, there will be a lot. We're now opening the floor for the Q&A session. So please feel free to send in your questions through the Q&A box right below. And our speaker, Sandra, will be very much happy to address them. So let me go through the list and let's start the Q&A portion. Firstly, Sandra, the first question that came in is, with the current market environment, particularly the upcoming US elections, how should investors approach market volatility and uncertainty?
Diversify. I mean, it's like a core principle, diba? Parang there's no, it's just one type of risk that is known. And the best way to approach any kind of known risk is to have a balanced position. And the question is always, what is that balanced position? It's very investor dependent. What are your objectives? What are your considerations? What's your context, right? But maybe, more specifically, the question, there are implications on the possible outcomes for the US elections. And, we are definitely, we have our scenarios. For example, if the incumbent or if it's the Democrats who win continuation of mandate versus its ability to, for Biden at least, and then Congress that is Republican, so that's incumbent. Parang what does that mean for policy? So continuation of trade, political, all of that, right? But if a Trump kind of comes in, what does that mean for global trade? What does it mean for immigration? No, so madaming possible scenarios. It kind of it defeats the purpose to try and forecast an outcome today. So it's more of managing it as we approach the US elections and being nimble or being having a clear plan for, if this happens, then this is what we're going to do. If this happens, this is what we're going to do. So the easiest way to do that is to have to spread your risk, which is basically diversification. And the technical term there is to be neutral to your strategic allocation for your investment portfolio for your asset class. So for example, we advocate for having globally diversified portfolios kasi we're Filipinos, our assets are in pesos, stands to reason that you want to invest it in peso denominated securities, equities, fixed income. But considering the access nowadays, there's no reason why you shouldn't get global exposure. Question is how much? So we try to answer those questions by designing investment portfolios. So knowing what those weights are is again a context of your own goals. But generally speaking, maybe it's a science and an art. Kasi your risk profile is a combination of your ability, your objective ability to take risk, and your tolerance for risk. So again, just be neutral. The question is, what is that neutral portfolio for you as a unique investor?
Definitely, no. So it's really staying diversified first and foremost, and also being aware of your own risk appetite. No? Because a very aggressive investor would have a very different ratio, say, versus a very conservative investor. All right. So thank you, Sandra, for that. So there are more questions coming in, and please continue to send them in. No? So the second question, Sandra, is, in terms of risk return reward for the next 1 to 5 years, what do you recommend more, Philippine or global equities?
1 to 5 year, combination of both.
Combination of both.
It's going back to that principle of diversification, right? You
Mhm.
cannot, parang you're putting all of your eggs in one basket. Okay, it
Mhm.
can pay off, but what's the risk there? And
Mhm.
right now, there is no clear driver. I mean, in
Mhm.
hindsight, we can say now, okay, US exceptionalism. But 2 years ago, it was also the risk of a recession is very real. It's just
Mm-mm.
that they managed to avoid it because of some, on savings, consumer,
Mhm.
immigrants kind of keeping the labor market tight, etc. So again, it's not um 1 to 5 years, especially, that calls for a strategic asset allocation. And um if you ask me, and we think that globally diversified strategy, meaning you have peso assets, Philippine assets in your portfolio, and you complement that with other sources of return that can mitigate also the risk, meaning if the Philippine bets move against you, you have something that can kind of make up for that elsewhere in another market.
Mm-mm. So some sort of like safety net, no, Sandra?
Yes, so it balances it out, eh.
Mm-hmm. And then if everything is going up, then there's more than one thing that will push your investment holdings go up then, right? So thanks for that. Very very insightful. No? It's really the lesson on diversification. Well, for the third question, I was alluding earlier, no, to the investment rate, potential investment rate cut, and by how many cuts we'll experience this year. With that, no, given that it would highly likely come in the second half of the year, is the dividend play still a good strategy? Do you think?
Uh, well, why has a dividend strategy been attractive? It gives you that income and the
Mm-hmm.
equity risk exposure. So the problem is on the equity side, it's run up. And
Mm-hmm.
again, I was talking about the possible scenarios, diba? If the Fed does not cut this year, the risk of a hard landing increases. And when you have a hard landing, it's good for bonds,
Mm-hmm.
bad for stocks. So why would you be holding a dividend strategy with earnings or yield from equities, and not bond strategy with real yields from fixed income securities? So I think it's pretty obvious na you want to be in the latter, you want to be in bonds.
You want to be in bonds?
But we don't know if the Fed does cut. They do cut in June, for example, and that allows for a soft landing, meaning growth needs to come down because it's quite hot, eh, meaning it's technical terms, it's above potential GDP for the US, and really the Fed needs to manage that. Otherwise, it's going to trigger resurgence of inflation, and it's their mandate to keep inflation well under control, no? So you don't want a hot economy kasi it spells disaster for down the road. You want to modulate it so that you're just at potential GDP, not above it, and obviously not below it. Right now, US is above that potential GDP. That's why we're keeping the policy rate tight.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that for the US at least, again, going to basics of having that diversification, and sticking to having a nimble positioning for the portfolios
Mm-hmm.
is what's required at this stage.
All right. And stemming off of that, I think one of the key principle is also, given that these are the things that we are seeing already, it's a really good time to already invest in a bond strategy, say I think one key lesson is let's not wait for when the Feds are actually starting
Yes,
to cut interest rates, else you'll be like FOMO already.
yes,
Uh,
yes.
so I
Because
guess
we're
yeah.
always going to try to get ahead. It will
Mhm.
anticipate, price in what hasn't happened yet.
Mm-mm.
So parang it's really timing the market is the hardest thing to do. Even as a
Definitely.
professional, we we have all of the tools, but it's still, we can get whipsawed, they call it. For example, we're invested in bonds. We've liked bonds, but this year
Mhm.
it hasn't been working. We like bonds because of the view that rates are going to get cut. We
Mhm.
know that. We know that's going to happen. But year to date, because of expectations being pushed back, uh, being in bonds hasn't paid off. But you get coupon naman. So from a total return standpoint, it's
Mhm.
not, it's not loss. But
Mm-mm.
there is opportunity cost where you're not participating in the cyclical rally in equities.
Mhm.
And it's easy to lose the discipline and kind of FOMO it. And so maybe I'm sure there are investors who are not invested at the beginning of the year. They're seeing such a strong run up
Mhm.
in January, February, put money in March, and now here we are in April. They'd be negative. Philippine equities should be down 7%.
Mm-mm. All right. Thanks, Sandra. So we have many more questions now that are coming in, and we continue to encourage our investors and our audience members to send them in. So Sandra can try to answer as much as we can now. So the next question is: with the higher for longer U.S. interest rates and geopolitical developments, sorry for that, which fund would you recommend for long-term goals? Global equity funds or US equity funds?
Just between the two?
Well,
Uh,
we can also expand. What do you think would be like a good ratio for to invest given these factors?
I would if I were to choose one fund, I will go with the multi-asset fund.
Mm,
Because we don't know where bonds are gonna be. And the danger is it's very what's the word? It's either equities are gonna do well or equities are gonna do bad.
mm-mm.
No? So if
Yeah.
you're just exposed in equities, um you're as good as doing a coin cost there, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have some bonds in that equation, you might if it's a soft landing scenario, you won't make as much as if you had just put all of your monies in US equities.
Mm-mm.
Um, but at least you mitigated the risk na it wouldn't be a soft landing scenario.
Mm-mm.
And global and US equities will go from actually 3,600 yata yung level target level for the S&P in case of a hard landing scenario. So it pays to be at this point a little bit conservative on your equity allocation. That's why I said no, we were overweight and we're moving to a more neutral stance.
Right.
Yes, US can continue to enjoy exceptionalism, but a global fund doesn't mean you're not holding US. But in case some data comes in that increases the probability of a hard landing versus a soft landing, even if that hasn't happened yet, you will have other drivers,
Mm-hmm.
for example, Europe or even Japan or even emerging Asia,
Mm-hmm.
to offset the possible risks that are associated with US equity markets.
All right.
So, short answer, just
Mm-hmm.
go for a multi-asset strategy, a global
Multi-asset.
multi-asset strategy.
All right. So global multi-asset strategy. Got it. Right. So the next question is, and this is I think very close to me personally, is what are your outlook or your thoughts regarding the technology sector?
Okay. It's a fascinating subject actually. It's in fact, fundamentally speaking, or investment principle, no? Growth, any long-term growth is driven by technological development.
Mhm.
Okay? So it pays for itself. But the markets can be they can be very aggressive in pricing in that growth.
Mhm.
Example is Nvidia, right? Hindi pa nangyayari, pero we're anticipating that all of this new whole AI fourth industrial revolution, we're at the cusp of it. It has cornered this market, blah blah blah. Very aggressively pricing in that growth,
Mhm.
which is sensitive to rates expectations.
Mm-mm.
If the Fed does start on an easing cycle, high duration bonds and high growth stocks will benefit. So
Mm-mm.
it can be a tailwind for tech companies who are actually delivering on earnings, okay? Kasi
Mm-mm.
within the tech space, you can't paint it with a broad brush, eh? But specifically for our fund, no, we take it upon ourselves to choose a really good active manager in that space. It's active. It's not like just buying an ETF. So the names that are in that strategy are deliberate and have their own fundamental reasons for being there. So for a long-term investor, stick with it.
Mm-mm.
Kasi if you're not a long-term investor, um, you would have so I'll bring us back to 2020. Was it 2022?
Mhm.
2022? I forgot now, pero there was a huge, at the
Mm-mm.
time, sell-off in tech just before the whole AI narrative came out. For
Right.
those
Right.
that were stuck there and probably capitulated because they're not actually long-term investors, they're just trying to ride this wave, you're gonna get whipsawed. So if you're actually a long-term investor, you can afford to hold very risky. By risky, I mean very a fund or an exposure that tends to have big swings and ups and downs. But generally, I like tech. We like tech as a core holding.
Mhm.
The narrative around it is very clear. The
Mm-mm.
growth prospects and the drivers are very clear, but you cannot look at it outside of the context of what's happening in the global macro environment. Because
Right.
even if you have all of these technological growth, if there's a recession, who's
Mm.
gonna be able to spend in all of that technology, right?
That's
So
right.
it's still a balance.
Mm-mm. Yeah, I think it's also good that you mentioned that whenever we invest in, say, the technology sector, it's good to also hold it for the long term, provided that a lot of things would happen in the economy. But since technology would continue to grow either which way, it's just a matter of how long. It seems like it's a good investment to have technology there, just right
Yeah.
there.
So again, there are many lenses by which to look at it, no? So let's just
Mm.
say for this year, it's done well. It's had a bit of a drawdown. Should you sell now? No, you should add. Why? Because for the rest of the year, um, there is momentum on earnings. There are those that weren't able to participate yet in the growth of that segment.
Mhm.
Um, if the Fed does end up cutting, it's good for growth stocks. They will benefit. But if a recession happens, you kind of need to watch those
Mm.
catalysts and those indicators
Mm-mm.
for when you might want to um uh you know uh divest from the fund. And right now, a no landing scenario is actually good momentum, no, for
Mm.
exuberance. Pero in my scenario, a no landing will actually lead to a hard landing. So it's gonna be a quick, so you have to be very, very deliberate
Right.
in when to go in and out if you're not a long-term investor.
All right, got it. Thanks, Sandra. Now, for the next question, so does a dollar to peso rate have an effect on these returns also? I think at the last, I think it's around the 57 to 1 levels just recently, no? So if yes, do we see a continuous upward trend for the dollar to peso exchange rate?
So I'm not sure I understand the question. Relative to our feeder funds?
I think relative to the returns of our feeder funds and our general portfolios.
Okay, so relative to the funds themselves, they
Mhm.
are invested in global markets, no?
Mhm.
The target fund is dollar denominated, but it doesn't necessarily mean that there is no other currency exposure because the fund manager may be invested in a company in China, for example. So there is currency exposure there. The manager might hedge it, no, back to the dollar to manage that risk. But tayo, the feeder itself is not hedged, meaning it's just being translated. So there is really no effect or your not no effect. Your ultimate exposure is the target fund, which is dollar. So if the dollar is strengthening
Mhm.
and the fund is denominated in peso, it's going to be good for you as a holder of that peso denominated fund. It's just a denomination. So the translation is going to look better from a
Mhm.
peso standpoint. Because the dollar nga is appreciating.
Mhm.
So I guess so that's one perspective. I think that the question is really answered best by, is the currency exposure hedged? Meaning, if I'm holding the feeder fund, am I exposed to the dollar strengthening or weakening against the peso or not? And the answer is you are exposed because it's not hedged. Okay? It's just
Mhm.
denominated in peso. The other way I would answer the question is not on the funds themselves, but on our discretionary strategies, where we have a strategic allocation to global assets. Actually, the idea there is there's also diversification from a currency standpoint. So yes, we should have a view on the currency when we decide to allocate to these global assets. So maybe an example or a straightforward example would be, I guess, the person who asked the question. So if we think that, where's the peso now? 57. If we think that average is for actually peso to strengthen, if you're holding a dollar asset, it will eat a little bit into your gains. So you want that dollar asset to really deliver hurdle on returns so that the peso strengthening against it will not eat into the returns of the asset. So yes, there is that consideration.
All right. Thanks, Sandra. And I guess for the last question for today's webinar, what is your fundamental rule on fund management to best serve investors?
Fundamental rule for fund managers to best serve investors: due diligence and
Mm-hmm.
prudence. So it's our job to know what we're doing, to understand the drivers in the markets, to be clear with clients about what they need, and to guide them towards strategies that are suitable to them, for the discretionary mandates that we have. Um, for those for our other clients who are holding our funds, our job is to make sure that the funds that we're choosing as the underlying are suitable. They're not gonna close down for whatever reason. They're being managed really well, but uh, it's in the discretion, or it's the call of the client which fund they're gonna hold, diba? I'm not telling you to buy this or buy that because I don't have discretion over your portfolio. That's a different service. So, but what's common between those two is, regardless of whether it's a discretionary portfolio or advice, it's based on due diligence that has been performed on these on the markets, on the investment outlets. And yeah, I guess that's a fundamental principle that we at Atram especially are very disciplined about.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Sandra. I think that's all the time we have for our questions now. But before we end this Q&A, would you have any final thoughts and insights that you would like to share with our audience?
Final thoughts and insights. Nasabi ko na yun pala. But always diversify. It's your best protection against the many risks, the known unknowns that proliferate, especially when it comes to our investment portfolios. We are here, Atram is here to help you at varying degrees on what you might need, whether it's advice, discretionary portfolio management, and we hope to deliver more value through these webinars and through just continuing that conversation. So we hope that hindi kayo magsawa to tune in and to engage with us so that we can work collaboratively towards achieving your investment objectives.
Right. That's a great insight. Thank you once again, Sandra. Big thanks. And hopefully many more opportunities to really learn from you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And all right. And now for a comprehensive overview of all the funds we provide, we invite you to explore our website at www.atram.com.ph. Feel free to visit for more detailed information. And did we mention that for as low as just 1,000 pesos, you can already jumpstart your investment journey? Here's how you can invest in Atram funds.
Good day. If you are interested in investing with Atram, the leading independent asset and wealth management company in the Philippines, please visit our website, www.atram.com.ph. We have all the details you would need to know about our funds. If you would like to start investing, click Invest Now. For further assistance and account opening, you may email our client services team. If you have more questions, visit the website's Frequently Asked Questions page or Atram Academy page. We hope this helps. Thank you.
Awesome. And did you know that Atram has its own app where investors can build their portfolios through the convenience of their mobile phones? Atram Prime offers access to a diverse array of investment options. These options empower you to tailor your portfolio according to your specific goals and risk tolerance. Committed to long-term growth, Atram Prime's expert fund managers utilize proven investment strategies, guiding you toward the creation of enduring wealth. For more detailed information, please refer to the video to be displayed on your screens. Now, if you're ready to take investing to the next level, you may download the Atram Prime app via Google Play Store and the Apple App Store. Now, stay connected with Atram news and updates through our official social media pages by scanning the QR code on your screen. You can also catch a replay of today's session on Atram's YouTube channel, Atram Studio. You may also visit our website at www.atram.com.ph for more comprehensive information on the market, finance, investments, and all the funds we provide. Lastly, we would greatly appreciate if you could participate in the survey at the end of this webinar so that your thoughts can be shared on your feedback and your insights also. They're very much important to us. Once again, We would like to express our sincere gratitude to everyone for actively participating, for listening, and for sending in your questions this afternoon. We extend our best wishes for your investments, your health, and your safety, not just for you, but also for your loved ones. My name again is Ros Santos, and I have been your host this afternoon. Have a great day ahead.